So once again, I want to welcome you all to Boundary Systems Wednesday webinar. My name is Michael Wimberly, and I will be presenting the Windchill 11 exporting BOM information into Excel. So once again, just the overall agenda for the webinar is, of course, to review and demonstrate the information. Once again, dealing with Windchill 11, and then just the overall agenda is simply an introduction of myself and Boundary Systems, general topic overview, and then of course the product demonstration, which is the main piece of it. And then after that, it'll be a short Q&A. So if you do have any questions, you can type them into the GoToMeeting. GoToWebinar question box. I will basically address the questions at the end of the webinar. So, all right. So, real brief introduction of myself. My name is Michael Wimberly once again. I am a senior technical specialist with Boundary Systems. I've been with Boundary Systems now over 5 years. I've been working with PTC products now for over 20 years, actually coming up on 25. Certified trainer in Creo and Windchill classes, also certified implementation specialist for Windchill. About Boundary Systems, first off, we are a technology leader. Some of our partners include PTC, Solid Thinking, e.t.c, ZWCAD, and then there are some additional technology companies that we work with. These companies themselves as well as our skill set is what allow us to be a technology leader. We have been one of the 16th fastest growing private companies in the greater Cleveland area. And then, of course, some of our capabilities that allow us to be that technology leader is we do product lifecycle management. We also do data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, as well as product development. On the right side, of course, we just simply have a listing of a few of the companies that we currently work with or have worked with in the past. Of course, that's not all the companies that we've worked with, but those are just some of them. Just once again, about Boundary Systems, we are headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio, but we do have people across many states. I myself actually still in Ohio, but I'm actually in Cincinnati versus being in the Cleveland area. And then once again, just some additional information. We've been into the Inc. 5000 as well as the Weatherhead 100, which is Northeast Ohio's fastest growing companies. And then some of our major accreditations are Windchill certified implementer, PTC preferred service provider, and PTC certified training partner. All right, and then once again, some of our solutions that we offer: PTC suite of solutions, Solid Thinking, e.t.c, Modex, Flow, EFD, and then of course ZWCAD. So a lot of those things we can also, we've done webinars on as well. So if you're not familiar with those softwares, please visit our website, which is boundarysys.com. And then also we have a YouTube page as well, so you can visit that at just look for Boundary Systems in the YouTube area, and there's videos on that as well. All right, and if you do have any technical questions, feel free to contact myself at area code 513-415-0747, or once again, you can email me at mwimberly@boundarysys.com. Or if you have any sales related questions, you can definitely contact our sales team, 440-274-0291, or you can also send an email to sales@boundarysys.com. All right. So for here, it's really just going to a demonstration. So the main part of that kind of tells you what it is in the heading, is that basically we're going to go into Windchill 11 and look at exporting some of our BOMs into Excel. So we'll jump right into it. All right. So here we have Windchill 11. Just simple layout. So here we have, I'm dealing with just at this point WT parts, but you can of course do your BOMs, your basic BOMs on the CAD files as well. But with the WT parts, you get so much more information, or for more information that you can actually incorporate. So the item that I'm actually going to go through and look at is this top level assembly that I've created here. So I'm just going to go into the information on that particular assembly. And then once again, we just simply see the basic information for that. and then we go into the structure area, and in the structure tab we can see all of the information. So we can see that top level assembly and then any sub assemblies that may be associated with those as well. As we go through and select on those, we can also see the attributes. If it had any visualizations for that particular item, it would show it, but we don't have any for that. Uses, so if we want to go through and increase quantities, we can go through and do that as well. So if we didn't want to repeat an item, we just want to go in and once again, this is our part structure, so we can go through and just manually update the quantities here and have that information updated. And then occurrences, and then the supersession if we have any of that set up as well. All right, so once again, the key to this is when you're going in and viewing the information in your product structure is to actually view the information that you want to see. So inside of here, we have our viewing grouping, and then we have our views. So I'll go back to the default view, and inside the default view, it just simply goes in and shows the structure. There's not really anything in there, just shows the structure. We can go through and expand individually to show those different items. We can also go in, I have one in here called attributes. And what that does is show all the pertinent attributes that I want to go in and display. So in here, I can go through and customize that. So now not only am I showing the actual object, but now I'm actually seeing the name column. I'm also seeing the number column. And then we have the object type. We can also see descriptions, vendor information. Once again, whatever information that we've gone through and added is what we can go through and show. So I've gone in and added a couple of additional columns to go through and show in my table. So at this point, if I want to go through and show this, I'm just going to go ahead and collapse those. I do have the ability right here to just do an export. So in the reports group, I can just come over here and select export, and then tell it the format that I want to export it to. I'm going to go ahead and use just the Excel export, and then it asks me, do I want to save it? I can go in and save it and open it. I'm just going to go ahead and open it directly, and it'll actually open it up in Excel, and of course it brings it into a different window. And what we simply see is whatever we've shown on the screen. So if you notice, I went in and I collapsed that top level assembly, or those two sub-assemblies. By collapsing those, it basically did not show any sub information on the screen. Now it showed the columns that I added, but it didn't show any of that sub-assembly information because it took exactly what was on the screen and exported that. So if I did want to see that additional information, then I would have to come over here and export those and then go in and do the exporting of these files. Once again, I'll just open it directly. And now it'll go through and expand and show that sub information. So we can see how that updates as well. So once again, when you do just a simple export directly from the reports group, it'll just take whatever's on the screen and that's all it's going to show you. But if you do want some additional information, you can come down here to the actual reports drop down, and then no matter what this is showing, so even though this may be collapsed, I can come over here in my reports and tell it, go ahead and show me a multi-level BOM. And then it'll go through and show that BOM information. I'll expand this as well. And it'll show me that. Now, this also has a table display. So I already have it set up to show my information. But once again, if I go back to the default, it's just going to show me their default information. So it shows me the necessary quantities, you know, the state, so on and so forth. But once again, I've gone through and I've created a custom display to go in and show the additional information. So now I am showing my additional columns. So for here, inside of here, let's say, so I have line number and find number. Those aren't items that I'm actually going through and using. So I want to go in and remove that. So just like any other table display, I'll come in here and customize that table display and simply edit the one that I have. Come over to my column display, and then I'll go ahead and get rid of line display or line number and find number. I can get rid of those. I'm also not using currently reference designator for what I'm doing, so I can go ahead and get rid of that. Finish that, and then let it go ahead and refresh the screen to now go and update my display. Now I'm only seeing the columns that I'm actually using, or the columns that are relevant to actually what I'm looking at. So what I'm currently looking at, of course, is the latest and greatest of that. So once I have that display, I can come over here to now the actions, and now I can export this to that format that I want. Now the benefit of doing it this way is that we also have line numbers here. So we can actually go through and see, the indentation of each one of those. So as I go through and export that, once again telling it to go ahead and open it up. And now goes in and once again expands it accordingly. And there's our structure numbers, so we can see once again which level everything is at. So, and then once again we can go through and now use this to go in and import into our ERP system or whatever we want to go through and use it for. All right, so now there will come times, and I'll go ahead and close out of this. There will come times when we want to go through and update information. So we may want to go through and update, some of our descriptions. We want to go through and change our vendors. So right now for our assemblies, we basically don't have a vendor associated with them, and we don't have a part number associated with them. So we may want to go through and change those. So inside of here, let's go ahead and select those. Let's see if I can do it from here. Of course not. So I'm going to go back into the structure area, and inside of the structure tab, or in the structure area, I do want my sub-assemblies, so I'm going to go in and select those. So those are my 3 assemblies, top level, and 2 sub-assemblies, and I want to go through and edit the properties of those. So I'm going to go in actions, and I'm going to come over, and there's an option in here for edit multiple objects. I'll go through and select that, and then once again I'm inside of my edit multiple objects area. Now once again, this has a default display as well, and it just simply shows you the required attributes for that particular item, and it shows you the items, of course, that you can go through and edit for those particular part files. So is it separable, inseparable, a component? Is it make, buy, or single source buy, or any comments? But of course I want to go through and edit my attributes, so the attributes that I've created, so my string attributes that I've created, or number attributes, or even date attributes, whatever they are, I want to edit those, and I want to do it here. So currently, if you notice, because I'm editing those, it automatically checked those out. So what I also want to do is I'm going to go through, just like all the other table displays, I've created a special table display that shows my attributes. And now inside of my attributes, I've added description, I've added vendor name, and I've added vendor part number. So I can come over here and now edit those individually. So the vendor name is going to be Boundary Systems. And then the actual vendor part number is going to be BSys-001. I'm going to make this BSys-1001, and then this one would be BSys-1002. And then of course I will go in and change these values to Boundary Syst as well. And then if I want to go through and change the descriptions, I can go through and do that as well. Any of those things, if I want to go ahead and add additional comments, I can. So all this I can go through and update. And then at this point, if I wanted to go through and maybe add some other items underneath them, so maybe I want to go through and expand and add additional parts underneath those structures, I could just do a save at this point. So instead of checking them in, if I check them in, then of course I'm done editing. At that point, it goes ahead and bumps the iteration. But right now I'm still on that same iteration that I've had. And then once again here, come on, go away. And then the same thing here for my different displays. I can go through and edit that as well. But once again, for here, instead of going in and doing anything else with them, I want to go ahead and check those in. So I'm going to go ahead and check those files in. But once again, I could have checked them in from my editing dialog box. And now I've gone through and bumped up those iterations as well. So now when I go back into the information for that, underneath the structure, I can then see the updated information. So just like everything else. And once again, I've done that to those individual items directly inside of Windchill without having to go through and export them or to go in and do them individually. I can do it right there inside of Windchill. Once again, because I'm working with my WT parts. Now, there may come a time where we do have even more columns than what's displayed here. So what I'm able to do is I'm able to actually go in and take these items, and when I export this, so I'm going to go ahead and do my report. I'm going to do my multi-level BOM. Once again, my BSys. What I'm able to do is not in that one, it's in this one right there. I'm actually able to go through, so I'll go through and add all the columns that I want. Then I can come over here and say export importable spreadsheet. And then I can come over and specify what information I want to export. Do I just want to export the BOM? Do I want to also export replacements? Does it have replacements? I'm not even sure if it does. So at this point, I'll just go ahead and leave it at BOMs. And then I'll go ahead and say, okay. Oh, sorry. I do have to give it a name. So I'll call this new BOM. And now it's going to and exported that. So then I can go ahead and open that up. And then once again, it opens it directly in Excel, and it has all the necessary columns that I need to go in and properly import this back into Windchill. So I can go through and manipulate those as necessary. All right. So, and then even with this, I can then go in and add additional columns as well, or add different rows. So I can have it go in and import and export the information that I need, and then import that information back in after I've gone through and done my edit on that particular item. All right. And then I mentioned before that, you have replacements possible. So what I can do is I'll go through and I'll come over and I'll select everything that's listed here. So I just basically did a shift key and selected everything. And then I can come over here and tell it to show any replacement parts that are available. And it'll go through and expand anything that has a replacement part. So we can see those listed here. Now, for these, I've actually named them based on what they are. So I've gone through and said, okay, for this part here, so this top part 3, I've actually created a top part 3 substitution. Now, when we go through and create substitutions, and we've actually done a webinar on this as well, in one of our webinars, we dealt with some of this. But in your BOM structures using your WT parts, we're also able to go through and specify alternates and substitutions. So an alternate will be something that inside of this assembly only, we can go through and swap it out. So if we don't have this sub part 2 available, then we're able to go through and use this sub 1 part 2 alternate. And once again, that's only for this specific assembly. If we go through and create a substitution, then we can actually go in and substitute that anywhere this part may be used. So depending on where it is or how you want to go through and define it, we can go through and set it up so that this substitution is valid for this part anywhere that is located in any assembly. And we're also able to go through and set up two-way substitution. So this can be substituted for that, and that can be substituted for that one. So if in one of the assemblies we've gone through and actually have or ran out of parts, we can go and now find another part on the shelf if those parts exist. And then the same thing here, when I go through and define my part or my BOM, I can go through and say multi-level BOM with replacements, and it'll actually go through and create that BOM. Oh, sorry, it did it based on what I had selected. Reports, multi-level BOM with replacements, and there it is. And then once again, we can see that it goes in and shows that it does have a replacement column now, and it shows that these are that's an alternate, substitutions, alternate, substitution, and alternate, and it shows what those actual items are. So we can see each one of those in there as well. So when we go through and start to gather up the parts as we're going through and building up our structure, or we're actually going to go in and put it together, we can now go through and find these other parts just in case we need them. So we can actually have that surplus over to the side if necessary. So once again, at this point, you know, the key to this whole thing is simply building up your structures. So when you go into your structure, whether it's directly in the CAD and it's related directly to your CAD, or you do like I have here and you build up your actual part structure individually without any CAD, you can build it up like so. There is one other thing that I did want to show you. So what I've shown up to this point has been our top level. So it's been our latest and greatest. So we're looking at A7. We can always go back into our history, and I'm going to go back to A5. And I know I'm in A5 because it shows here, and it also always has this nice bright red go to latest selection if I want to go there. And then I can go to its structure tab. Yep, did it again. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Let's go back to 6. Yeah, go back to 6, and then once again I can go through and see that in 6 those variables, those attributes aren't updated like they were before. So these are still, at least for that one, is out of sync. All right, but the other thing that I'm also able to do is display it based on something else. So for this, it's doing the latest. So what I want to do here is, instead of going in and doing basically that particular as stored version, as they say, as matured version, I want to go through and actually do it based on a baseline. So for that assembly, I have a baseline that I created at A.3 of this file. I want to go through and update that so that now I'm looking at that particular baseline of that object. And what it will do is it will now roll back everything to those versions in that baseline. And then the same thing at this point, I can now come in and create my BOM structure for that. Now, once again, I'm now comparing properly what I have in my baseline versus what I have in my actual top level assembly. So it'll roll that information back as well. Excuse me. All right, then I'll go ahead and go to latest. And then once again, with the latest and greatest, it shows everything to its latest versioning and all the updated files, even with the replacements that are in there. All right, so once again, as I was stating, the key to all of this, or getting the information out of it that you want, is putting the information in there that you want. So it's key to make sure that when you're going in and you're importing the information or you're adding information inside of either your CAD files or your WT part files, that you actually go through and incorporate the information that you actually want to go through and see. So we can go through, and as I stated before, we can always, and this display level, I don't know if I created one, but I can always go in and customize this display as well. And I'm just going to go through and use this one, save this one. It says all parts. And I'm going to go give it a new name, say parts and attributes. And then once again, simply add the additional columns that I want. which I'm not sure why it's not showing me all of them. I don't already have them over there. But so once again, it's just a matter of going in and making sure that we have the information in that we want. Once again, we get out what we put in. And yeah, for some reason it's not updating properly, so I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. So once again, the key to all of this, once again, make your structures the way you want them to be made. Add the appropriate attributes. As you can see, when we go into each one of these parts, each one of these individual part files has the needed or filled in information for the attributes. So add the attributes to the WT part files, update that information accordingly, and once again, or whatever information you want to go in and put inside of your ERP system that you're exporting this BOM structure for. Make sure you have that information incorporated into your WT part files. Fill out that information. That way, when you transfer it from Windchill into your ERP system, all the appropriate columns are filled out properly, and everything meshes nice and smoothly between Windchill and your ERP system. So once again, I can't stress it enough that you get out of it exactly what you put into it. So, and then we can also go in and talk about, and we've done webinars on this as well, being able to go in and set effectivity dates, because that's important as well. So when we do have the different iterations, we've made changes, we can go through and set up effectivities on them as well. So we can go through and specify when a certain version of a particular file or particular structure was valid. So we can go through and set all that stuff up. So once again, the more information we put in here, the more we can get out of it. All right. So at this point, sorry. That's currently all. So are there any questions on anything with this? Once again, if you have questions, you can add those to the questioning area inside of the webinar. Somebody raised their hand. Did not see who that was. It went away. Whoever that was, if you have a question, you can definitely type it into the questioning area. The question is, do you have to be an admin to work in the BOM area? No, you do not. Once you have the ability to simply edit your WT parts, it's just like your CAD files. It's based on the permissions at that lifecycle state. So as long as everything that I've been working on was in work, so I have full ability to go through and add and update as necessary. But of course, as it transitions into the release state, then those permissions, of course, are locked down. So no, your permissions are based on how they're set up across the board. So no, you do not have to be an admin to go in and do that. The question is, do these changes change the drawings? Well, what we've just been dealing with are just WT parts. So these aren't the actual CAD files. So the CAD structure itself, to go in and edit that, you'll still do that inside of Creo. So yes, if you're doing it that way, then yes, it will go in and change the drawings. What we're looking at here are simply just the WT part files, which don't actually have physical contents. So they're basically Windchill parts. So just editing there does not affect the drawing. It will go in and actually affect just your BOM structures that we were looking at. No problem. All right, if there aren't any additional questions, once again, just as a reference, we do have some upcoming events. So we still have our hands-on workshop coming up on the 19th, which is tomorrow in Pittsburgh. So we have that for the hands-on workshop. We also have, so the morning session, we're looking at what's new in Creo 4. For the afternoon session, we're doing a Creo View Lite. So we still have that. And then we have another one in Youngstown that's also coming up. For any additional information that we have, you can, of course, definitely visit our website at boundarysys.com. I normally have that up. Once again, go to our events. There's hands-on workshops. We also have our webinars that are coming up. So right now, we're looking at the one that we're on today. And then upcoming is the model accuracy settings in Creo, Creo 4 additive manufacturing, Spark analysis, and so on and so forth. So we have quite a few coming up with additional data. And then once again, interested in any training, we have our training schedule. As you can see, we have multiple locations: Cleveland, Chicago, Charlotte, Orlando, here, of course, in Cincinnati, Troy. We can all go through. If we all want to go to Orlando, especially in December, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go to Orlando and teach this class for you guys. So, or anybody, just go to Orlando. So anything coming up, once again, you can always visit our website, boundarysys.com. And as I mentioned before, any of the additional products that we have, you can also go through and find inside of here as well. So simulation, our Windchill information, plugins, so on and so forth. So it's quite a bit of information that you can get from our website. So once again, if you want to contact me, 513-415-0747. If you want to contact sales, 440-274-0291, or sales@boundarysys.com, or mwimberly@boundarysys.com. We do have our tech support area where you can go to support.boundarysys.com to open up a ticket if you have a technical support question, or you can also email support@boundarysys.com. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.